Welcome to the Heat Pump Nation and our video about the 10 most common heat pump installation fails. Hi, I'm Jonathan and I'm a contractor specializing in heat pumps. For this video, I've teamed up with my friends at Franklin Energy to talk about how to install heat pumps so that they save the most energy possible while making customers extremely satisfied. This video was originally produced for the Comfortable Home Rebates program of Pacific Gas and Electric, with production support from Daikin, a leading manufacturer of heat pumps. If you don't know about Daikin and their many heat pump products, check out daikinac.com. It's important to start off by saying that this video is not designed to replace a manufacturer's installation training. That is because when installing a heat pump, you must always follow the manufacturer installation requirements found in the instructions that come with the equipment and which can also be learned at a manufacturer's training class. These manufacturer installation requirements are incorporated into mechanical code, and as licensed contractors, we are bound to follow them. The topics I will cover in this video should be considered installation advice that supplement the manufacturer's installation requirements. My advice comes from both having installed heat pumps in thousands of homes as a part of utility rebate programs and from post-installation quality assurance research performed by utilities. Assuming you strictly follow a manufacturer's installation requirements, the tips I share in this video can help your heat pump installations save energy and make satisfied customers, which are the two goals for any rebate program that you participate in. So if you're wondering, how can a heat pump installation fail to make customers happy and fail to save energy? Stay tuned, because we will address these questions in this video. Let's begin by imagining the installation of a heat pump at a customer's home. For an installer, this is typically a very busy day, jam-packed with 100 different tasks. All of these tasks are time-sensitive and important. They include basic individual things like showing up to the customer's house on time and wearing a clean uniform. And they include tasks that require organization and teamwork, like having all the equipment and installation materials on hand so that the installation can be performed properly and in a timely manner. Once the installer is at the home, they must evaluate the installation locations for suitability and general layout. This draws on the installer's knowledge and experience, and it results in the installer making a game plan for the installation work to follow. Once the installation location and general layout is established, the installer can execute their game plan and perform the many individual tasks that result in a well-installed and high-performing installation. In my experience, 6 installation fails originate during the evaluation of installation locations and the creation of the system layout. And because the game plan for the day's work starts at this step, the mistakes made here get carried throughout the installation work. So let's talk about the typical things to look out for in this selection of the installation location and creation of the system layout. If you install an outdoor unit on a patio, deck, or any hardscaping, you risk creating an installation fail. This is because ice can build up around the outdoor unit and create a nuisance or slip hazard. At first, this might seem like a small issue, but don't be fooled. If you are new to heat pumps, it is easy to forget that heat pumps regularly undergo a defrost cycle. The defrost cycle occurs when outdoor air temperatures are around 40 degrees and lower, when the moisture in the air freezes to the heat pump outdoor coil. Over time, ice continues to build up, and every so often the heat pump will automatically go into defrost cycle to melt this ice off. Defrosting is necessary because ice buildup on the coil surface interferes with heat transfer, causing lower total heating capacity and reduced energy efficiency. When the heat pump enters defrost cycle, the choice of installation location and system layout becomes very important. Why? If it is below freezing outside, the ice being melted off the heat pump becomes water and drains off the heat pump. And because it is below freezing outside, the meltwater refreezes on the surfaces immediately surrounding the heat pump. Over time, and after many defrost cycles, the amount of ice buildup around the outdoor unit can be significant. If you locate a heat pump on a patio, hardscaped surface, or even a deck, the ice buildup can be a big problem. At best, it's just a nuisance. More often, it becomes a slip hazard. If one of your installations experiences this fail, you can expect to receive a call from your customer asking you to get out there and fix this problem. And you won't like what is involved in fixing the problem, because the corrective action is significant. I strongly encourage salespeople to be mindful of this issue and design installations that do not create this problem in the first place. Installers need to be mindful of the situation too, so that when they are asked to install a heat pump on a patio, hardscaping, or deck, they can suggest an alternative installation location that sites the heat pump on landscaping or another location where ice buildup will not be an issue. If you cannot find an alternative installation location for the heat pump, there are material solutions that can be added to the installation to prevent the unwanted ice buildup. But I am here to tell you that these material solutions are not desirable and should be avoided unless no good alternative installation locations exist. Why? Firstly, these specialized installation materials add cost, and they take additional labor time to install. I'm talking about collection pans for under the heat pump, drain piping, and thermostatically controlled heat tapes throughout. These materials are used to keep the meltwater from refreezing and to pipe it away to an acceptable location. Secondly, these corrective strategies use a meaningful amount of energy too. And considering that utility programs are all about saving energy, if we can avoid using drain pans and heat tapes, we should. The skill to master here is to anticipate this ice buildup issue and avoid creating the problem in the first place. From experience, I can tell you that you don't want to find yourself having to take corrective action after the fact. You will be faced with having to retrofit drain pans and heat tapes into the installation, which may involve completely reinstalling the outdoor unit. Another option is to relocate the outdoor unit so that it is not on a walkway, patio, or hardscaping. This is also very expensive because we are talking about a new electrical circuit, new refrigerant lines, and reinstallation of the outdoor unit. You see what I mean? This is a big deal. Thankfully, this installation fail is preventable, so be sure to educate your salespeople and installers to the consequences of siting a heat pump on a patio, hardscaping, or deck so that they can avoid using this installation if at all possible. Number 2, if you install an outdoor unit along a bedroom wall, you risk creating an installation fail. This is because, under certain circumstances, heat pumps can produce sounds that can be heard by occupants inside the bedroom. From customer satisfaction surveys conducted by utilities, we have learned that these operational noises can reduce customer satisfaction. And since nearly all utility rebate programs are evaluated on their level of customer satisfaction, ensuring that heat pump customers have a great experience is key to being successful in any heat pump rebate program. After digging deeper into the customer satisfaction surveys conducted by rebate programs, we learned 3 important factors that contribute to creating this installation fail. And these are, number 1, the homeowner has never lived with a heat pump before. Number 2, the home has single-pane windows and little or no wall insulation. And finally, number 3, the occupant of that bedroom is a light sleeper. If all 3 of these factors are present, you could create a situation where the occupant's sleep patterns are disrupted by the heat pump. Since no one likes to have their sleep interrupted, if we can avoid triggering this issue, we should give it our best try. There is a lot going on here in this fail, and it's worth unpackaging each of the 3 conditions contributing so that we can learn more about how to be successful with heat pumps. So number 1, if the homeowner has never lived with a heat pump before. Humans are great at recognizing change. Therefore, we will notice a new sound like, for example, a heat pump going into defrost cycle just on the other side of our bedroom wall. Now, for people who have lived with a heat pump before, they will likely not notice the sounds produced by a heat pump. But for new heat pump owners, they will notice them. Be unsure about what's going on, and then call your office to say they think their heat pump is broken. So this scenario highlights why it is essential to educate and orient your customers to their new heat pump. In fact, new user education is so important to producing a satisfied customer that we dedicate a whole video in this series on the subject. So be sure to check out the video titled Educating Customers on Living with a Heat Pump. Okay, let's move on to factor number 2, if the walls are uninsulated or there are single-pane windows. This becomes a factor when a sale involves removing an old AC and replacing it with a heat pump. In these instances, you will likely be putting the heat pump in the old AC's installation location. And if this location is adjacent a bedroom wall, you will need to know if the walls are uninsulated and the bedrooms are single-pane windows. If they are, you could have a problem. However, if the walls are well insulated and the windows are double pane or better, you will likely be okay. But to hedge your bets, you will need to find out if the occupant of the room is a light sleeper. And hold that thought for a minute. If the installation location is new, meaning they have not had an AC before, it's pretty easy to avoid installing the heat pump adjacent a bedroom wall. This is because most bedrooms have either a closet or bathroom just a few feet down the wall, and it's a great alternative to install the outdoor unit opposite a closet or bathroom wall. Factor number 3, if the homeowner is a light sleeper. When the previous factors are present in a heat pump installation, you need to have a conversation with the homeowner to find out if they are a light sleeper. If they are, you should prepare them for some new noises. If, when they hear about these new noises, they seem apprehensive, you may need to propose relocating the installation to another spot, which is really worthwhile if that is what it takes to make them satisfied. As I mentioned earlier, customer satisfaction is very important for any utility rebate program. And as a trusted partner of your utility, it's worth taking this installation fail seriously because there is a lot of survey evidence pointing to it being a real issue. Fail number 3. If you install an outdoor unit under the drip line of a roof, you risk creating another installation fail. During rain events and during times when snow is melting off roofs, water drops can land on your heat pump, freeze, and ultimately turn the heat pump into a block of ice. What happens is that the sheer amount of moisture coming off a roof strip line can overwhelm the heat pump's defrost cycle, which is only designed to rid the heat pump coil surface from airborne moisture, not a constant supply of drips coming off of a roof. There are a few ways to prevent this fail from occurring. Firstly, make sure salespeople and installers are aware of this fail so that they can take steps to prevent it from being an issue in the first place. Next, to prevent this fail, installers can locate the outdoor unit away from the structure, outside of the drip line. This way, the drips won't fall on the heat pump. If this is not possible, there are a few material solutions available, such as caps for the top of the unit or building a small shed roof over top of the heat pump. Both of these material solutions are designed to prevent the drips from hitting the heat pump, and while they are expensive, they work great for those instances when the unit cannot be placed outside of the drip line. Fail number 4. If you install a side discharge outdoor unit, which is the typical form factor for modern variable capacity heat pumps, and you install this type of outdoor unit facing into the dominant wind direction, you risk creating an installation fail. In many areas, there is a dominant wind direction, or a typical direction that the wind comes out of. If an outdoor unit is faced into the dominant wind direction, it will cause the outdoor fan to counter-rotate. And when the system starts up and tries to energize the fan motor, it cannot overcome the force of the wind, causing the fan motor and/or the fan circuit board to fail. This may seem like a rare occurrence, but let me tell you from personal experience that this is an important fail to be mindful of and take steps to prevent. Thankfully, it is a pretty easy thing to prevent. It can be as simple as rotating the heat pump 90 degrees or relocating the unit out of the dominant wind direction. Also, most heat pump manufacturers make a wind baffle, which is an accessory that can be ordered and added to the front of the heat pump. Wind baffles break up the wind and prevent the fan from counter-rotating. As with other installation fails, the key is to make sure that installers and salespeople are aware of this fail so that they can take steps to prevent it from occurring. Fail number 5. In areas where ACs are typically sold, installers may not know about the importance of installing heat pumps above the typical or average snowfall level. If a heat pump gets even partially covered by snow, it can create an installation fail. This is because heat pumps need unobstructed and free-flowing air, especially in winter months. When airflow gets obstructed, total heat capacity output and energy efficiency suffer. And when it's cold outside, homeowners need all the heat they can get from their heat pump. And for utility programs, they need the heat pumps they pay rebates on to be as energy efficient as possible. For installers and salespeople, it's important to know the average snowfall depths for the areas in which you work. This way you can be sure to install the heat pump using pump ups, a stand, or even wall brackets, so that they will be above the average snow levels. But there's more to this story because average snowfall levels are just that, average. In cases where extreme snowfall events occur, homeowners will need to go out and clear away the snow from their heat pump. So add this to the list of education and orientation items that need to be talked about with homeowners. Let's move on and talk about our last installation location fail. If a ductless style indoor unit is installed with a light fixture, shelf, or any other obstruction directly in front of it, an installation fail can result. This is because the conditioned air being discharged out of the front of the unit can bounce off of the obstruction and get sucked right back into the indoor unit. Because the air has only just been discharged from the indoor unit, its temperature is still either very warm or very cold. And when this conditioned air comes in contact with the return air temperature sensor inside the indoor unit, it leads the system to believe that the room is satisfied. Therefore, the system ramps down because it thinks its work is done. However, a few minutes later, the true room temperature makes its way back to the return air sensor, triggering the system to begin working in earnest once again. And thanks to the obstruction in front of the indoor unit, after a few moments, the cycle repeats itself, causing the system to shut down prematurely. The end result of all this is that the system never really reaches full capacity, and it leaves the rest of the space distant from the indoor unit feeling uncomfortable. From experience, I can tell you that this installation fail is real, and it is very difficult to identify. That is because when a service technician gets to the home, they will find no fault with the system. It will appear to be working perfectly. The key to preventing this installation fail, like before, is making sure that salespeople and installers are aware of it, and that they can take steps to prevent from triggering it in the first place. For service technicians who find themselves trying to deal with this problem, solving it can be as simple as using the air vanes on the indoor unit to push air away from the obstruction, or as complicated as relocating the indoor unit or relocating the obstruction. Let's move on to 4 installation fails that come directly from the installer's techniques and installation practices. These are things that impact a heat pump's performance and energy savings, and because they don't prevent the heat pump from working, they are not immediately apparent to the installer. Nevertheless, they are important to helping an installer master their craft and to help a contracting company deliver high satisfaction to their customers and utility partners. So let's dive into them. Installation fail number 7 results when the outdoor unit becomes tilted during its useful life. If a heat pump is installed on a ground pad or stand, and the ground which the pad or stand is placed on is not properly prepared, an installation fail will result. That is because, over time, and after many defrosting cycles, the moisture that comes off the heat pump will cause the soil or landscaping material to degrade. Pretty quickly, in fact, the heat pump will develop a noticeable tilt. This tilt is not just bad to look at, it actually impacts the effectiveness and frequency of the defrost cycle. Here's how. If the meltwater and ice are not thoroughly drained from the outdoor unit during the defrost cycle, the ice more quickly returns after the defrost cycle ends. This causes the heat pump to enter defrost cycle more quickly next time around. And with more frequent defrost cycles, you get greater energy consumption and lower customer satisfaction. This is because defrost cycle is a very unproductive energy consumption, meaning that when a heat pump is in defrost cycle, it uses energy but produces no heat for the occupants. And from utility customer satisfaction surveys, it's clear that when heat pumps too frequently go into defrost cycle and stop making heat, customers feel unsatisfied. To prevent this fail from occurring, it takes a little bit of installer craft, but it is worth it. Here's how to prevent a heat pump from becoming tilted in the first place. After you choose your outdoor unit installation location, be sure to take a shovel and remove topsoil and landscaping mulch so that you can get down to base soil. Once you get down to base soil, you take a soil tamper and pack that base soil hard. Next, pour a couple of buckets of 1/4-inch gravel with minus down on top of the packed base soil and spread it out. As an alternative to gravel, I have seen installers use a couple of bags of dry cement mix, and it appears to work. Next, tamp the gravel to make it level and pack it into place. As you work the gravel into place, spray some water onto it to help it pack even harder. Next, put your ground pad into place and level it. Finally, put your pump ups or stand on the pad and continue installing the heat pump. With these few extra steps, the heat pump should stay level for its entire useful life. The next installation fail results when the installer makes a bend in a refrigerant line and inadvertently creates a partial kink in the tube. A partial kink is simply a reduction in the diameter or cross-section of the tube, which results in decreased refrigerant flow. Not a blockage of the tube, just a flow restriction. There are several undesirable things that result from a partial kink. The first is reduced total capacity. Even a minimal partial kink can result in 10 to 25% loss of total capacity. A partial kink also leads to higher energy consumption, especially in variable capacity heat pumps, because the system tries to compensate for the flow restriction by working harder. Lastly, partial kinks also make customers unsatisfied because the reduced total capacity means their room doesn't warm up as well as outdoor temperatures drop. Here's a tip about diagnosing partially kinked line sets. Anytime a customer calls and says, "I don't think my heat pump is working correctly. It doesn't seem to be making enough heat." The first thing to consider is a partially kinked line set. In this situation, if your technician doesn't first consider it as a possible cause, they will have a very difficult time trying to diagnose and identify the problem. After all, the system will appear to be working fine, and there will be no fault codes. Unless the service technician happens to go out to the home on a very cold day to personally experience the cold room temperatures, it is very easy to miss the symptoms. To determine if a partial kink is present in the line set, the technician will need to put the system into full capacity operation and feel along the line set to see if there are any hot spots. They will be able to feel the heat through the line set insulation at the location of the partial kink. The solution involves removing the partially kinked section of line set or replacing the line entirely. The thing about partially kinked line sets is that they don't occur very often and only really occur with larger tube diameters, such as 1/2 inch or larger. However, they produce the nagging sort of problem that, if not quickly identified, leads the customer to doubting their heat pump and your skill as a contractor. Just like with many of the installation fails we have talked about, the key is to make sure installers and service technicians know about the possibility of a partially kinked line set and its consequences, so that they can prevent them from occurring in the first place, and know to look for them when customers complain about not having enough heat as outside temperatures drop. There are some cool new tools to help installers make tight radius tube bends, and a path to the mastery of heat pump installations includes equipping installers with these insertable tube benders and requiring installers to use them religiously. Let's move on to installation fail number 9. If you install a ductless heat pump and forget to tightly air seal and weatherize the wall penetration, you risk creating an installation fail. This is because with a ductless style indoor unit, the fan located inside the indoor unit will pull outside air into the room through the unsealed wall penetration. This results in an uncomfortable draft inside the room, which makes occupants unsatisfied with their heat pump. What also happens is that the cold air being pulled in through the unsealed penetration will influence the return air temperature sensor, which is located inside the indoor unit. The cold air running over the return air sensor makes the system think that the room is much colder than it actually is, and the heat pump compensates for this by working harder, which includes kicking up the fan speed and running the compressor harder, so a lot more energy is used. It's a classic negative feedback cycle because with increased fan speed, more cold outside air is pulled through the unsealed wall penetration. The harder the heat pump works, the less the room warms. And like with other installation fails we mentioned, the symptoms don't really appear until it gets pretty cold outside, which just so happens to be when the occupants need all the warmth their heat pump can produce. This installation fail is a bit difficult to diagnose, but it is also critical to get right so that the customer has a great experience with their heat pump from day one. Just like before, the key to preventing this installation fail is to make sure that installers and service technicians know to double check the air sealing and weatherization of the wall penetration. The path to mastery related to this installation fail is to create and enforce use of a heat pump installation checklist, and make sure that the checklist includes double checking the air sealing and weatherizing of any wall penetrations. This way, in the busy whirlwind of an installation day, this small but important detail does not get missed. For our final installation fail, we look again to the heat pump's refrigerant line sets, specifically at the insulation. If you don't protect line set insulation from degradation by ultraviolet light, you risk creating an installation fail. This is because the line set insulation needs to remain functional for the entire useful life of the heat pump. And without protection from the UV radiation in direct sunlight, the insulation starts to break down in 1 to 2 years. When line set insulation breaks down, the energy efficiency of the heat pump suffers. It's not a huge loss individually for the heat pump, but when you consider that a utility heat pump rebate program hopes to see tens of thousands of heat pumps operating, if each installation experiences a loss of efficiency of a few percent, the total loss for all the heat pumps is meaningful. Therefore, contractors participating in rebate programs should seriously consider taking a few simple steps to protect the insulation on refrigerant line sets. First off, any exposed line set insulation should be wrapped in UV protective film. There are lots of materials to choose from, such as tapes, wraps, and shrouds. Next, always try to use line set covers for long runs of line set along the exterior of a structure. At first, line set covers can seem like an expensive material. However, once you get over the shock of the cost, you will realize that line set covers make a heat pump installation look really nice because it contains not just the line sets, but also the drain pipes and wiring. Even more important than aesthetics, line set covers save precious labor time too. It takes much less time to run line set cover along the exterior of a house than it does to wrap an entire length of line set in UV protective tapes. You may have noticed that all of the installation fails we have talked about in this video have an impact on the energy efficiency of a heat pump, and many of the fails can also be directly tied to homeowner comfort and satisfaction too. Think of it like this: if the way you install a heat pump impacts energy efficiency, it will likely impact occupant comfort too. So be sure to look closely at all of your installation practices and try to identify little ways to improve the energy efficiency and performance of the heat pump system through using better practices. Your improvements will likely translate to a happier and more comfortable homeowner too. As usual, we have covered a lot in this video. But I hope after learning about the top 10 installation fails, you feel like you can do this. The installation fails I covered in this video are by no means all of the fails you can make. However, as long as you are working to learn and improve and share your knowledge across your team, you will find you can quickly become a heat pump expert too. One last item will help you gain mastery quickly, and that is to install a heat pump or heat pump water heater in your own home. There's nothing like first-hand experience to help you leap ahead in expertise, and the advancements you can make at home will only make you better in the field. If you have liked what you've heard in this video, please be sure to let us know by hitting the like button, and please consider sending us a message with your thoughts and ideas. And I hope you will check out the other Heat Pump Nation videos in this series. Thanks for watching.